All right. Okay, so it is now opened up, so I will.
Got it there?
I do.
Okay. And then if you want to, if there's a blank part where it says the phone number and the email address that you can contact, I can speak to that because that's just the email I'm monitoring and the phone number that I'm monitoring.
Okay. What do you mean? This is a new Zoom procedure for me, so. Okay. Okay, welcome. Today we are, before we get started, I'll read through a checklist to ensure that the meeting that we are holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As chair of this commission, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to his executive order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that 1, we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and selected legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom and via phone by following the directions and links provided on the general court website. We have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar. We're providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remotesenate@ledge.state.nh.us or call 603-271-3043. Is that the correct number, Alan?
You got it.
In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Okay, I'm gonna have to get the roll call if we do that. Finally, let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state where they are and if anyone else is in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Okay, this is good to do just for getting up to speed with the protocols here. So I'm going to go to our website to get our roll. So shall I start? Now I just read the list of people and okay, so when people, Eric Anderson, not here. Jay Baker, not here. Eric Chapman is here. And what do I say? I say,
I'm alone in this room.
what's that?
You have to say I'm alone in the room.
I'm alone in the room. I don't think there's any cats or dogs here. So I am alone in the room. Steve Kuchar is not here. Rennie Cushing, not here. Jen Dykstra. Brian Giannaco.
I'm here, I'm at home, and I am alone in the room.
Mark Godfroy. Jason Jandrin. Alex LaFerrier. Gino Marconi. Melissa Paley.
I am here and I'm alone on the screen porch.
Cherie Patterson. Tom Sherman. Judith Spang.
I'm here and I'm alone.
Sabrina Stanwood. David Waters.
I am here and I'm alone in my room in Dover.
And that's it. So are we done with that? Are we all set to roll?
What does constitute a quorum for this commission? Or, I mean, we may not be taking any votes anyway, but is there a minimum that we need?
Senator Waters?
I would recommend, Eric, that unless more people join, that this be an informational meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, the other panelists think that makes sense.
Yes.
All right, so we'll have we'll run through the agenda. We can't approve notes from March and July, but we can use the time really, which is the main purpose, was to discuss the commission direction and steps and how can we make the commission's work more impactful and meaningful. That was something that had been introduced as something that people wanted to talk about, and we were thinking we'd set aside a little bit of time, even with a small group, we can have some conversation on that. And then the only other thing we really wanted to do during this hour is to think through where we wanted to go next. We've just finished writing and submitting the 2019 Marine Debris Focused Report. And now we have an opportunity to kind of move into new territory. So it's time to kind of think about where we want to go next. That'll help me understand who to talk to join us for our next meeting, which is at the end of the month, at the end of September. Okay, so I will share my screen. Actually, I don't think I need to share my screen. I mean, I just ran through the agenda, and really this is an opportunity to share some thoughts about, I mean, one thing that's obvious is that there are quite a few members of the commission who are, you know, there are people who come, there are a number of people who aren't coming on a regular basis. So how can we think through what we do during this time and do with the commission's time so that we can be more impactful or have our time be more meaningful? Anybody have anything to kind of kick that off?
Judith Spang speaking. I think you've hit on something right off the bat, and that is how do we get more people to participate more actively?
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation,
Yes.
you know, and I've heard numerous people who had you know, early on in the commission's time together, you know, were more active, but I think there's seems to be, you know, a feeling which I would share that the time may not be really especially well spent in terms of actually achieving results, you know. So I think if, you know, we have spent now 3 years meeting, we've had pretty in-depth conversations and learning opportunities on a number of issues. I think there's been a lot of great networking and exchange of ideas and growing awareness between different members of the commission to what's going on in different agencies, and there have been a few direct. I mean, I actually can only think of one, which is the piece of legislation that Senator Waters introduced about funding for the trap cleanup. So, you know, over 3 years, I mean, I correct me if I'm wrong, but that doesn't seem like a tremendous output for maybe for the amount of time that we've spent together. So I think it's, if we want people to re-engage, or we want to continue, you know, to make this, you know, something that people participate in, I think we have to be thinking more about what is our end game, what are our objectives, and if it's just an information exchange, that's got value, absolutely has tremendous value in and of itself. But you know, I think there's we need to really, I think, dig in more on what kind of impact we want this group to have, and then if we do want it to have impact, we need to see that, you know, in a tangible way.
Melissa, I think you're dead on. This is Judith. I've been having the same feelings that and I have the same feelings about my shoreland septic system commission, where we've been concentrating on input, on getting people to come and speak and inform us, but not enough concentration on what we should then do about it. I think just looking at your draft, and I think that you're diminishing the value of your draft report, because you do talk about several pieces of legislation that that have been put forward. I think that Senator Waters has put in something relative to marine gear. I've certainly put in stuff relative to plastic bags. And I think I don't know if we have actually been responsible for a lot of the work that's being done on the nitrogen load. But that's something that, as a sponsor of one of these bills, I'm thinking, should we be taking a more active role in vetting that legislation to help put them together and help to troubleshoot them? And maybe even, I don't know if it's a role for a commission to actually begin, don't know if I want to say lobbying, but pushing some of this legislation when it does get into the mix, into the machine. That's a lot.
If I could add to that, Eric, would you ask the two new people to officially sign in with you, and then we'll have a quorum and we can continue as an official meeting.
And we have two new folks joining us. Cherie Patterson has joined us. And Cherie, if you could just state whether or not you are, we just, do I need to read the?
No, just each person has to state who they are, where they are, and whether they're alone in the room.
You got that, Cherie?
Good morning. This is Cherie Patterson. I'm in my office and I am alone.
And I'm sorry, I can't recognize the other person who's joined us.
I've asked them to unmute, but they have to do it on their end as well.
Okay. I could decode it by looking through my email list, but I'm not sure who that is.
I'll email that and try. Oh, here we go. Oh, no.
Ike Bub.
Ike Bub.
Trying to join us.
I'll email them and try to get them to. Oh, there we are. They're unmuted now.
Would you identify yourself?
Can they do that through the chat?
Interesting.
There we
You
go.
used to say Representative Janvrin. How about that one?
Oh, there we go. Welcome.
I'll
let me go
change
and
that
change-
for you, Representative.
Thank you.
Steve, I would just like to remind people that when they speak, they should give their names. So people who are listening in by phone will know who it is that's speaking.
Okay, so back to, we are now an official meeting, and back to our conversation. I agree completely with this, Senator Waters, with what Melissa and Judith have said thus far. And I think that, we do get a good, when we have a presentation of some research, we've had very good attendance, and some other meetings as well. And this fall, I think it would be an opportunity for us to do a couple of things. With the report, I think it's an opportunity for us to promulgate that report and to use that as a vehicle for making our work better known. And then secondly, this fall will be a time at which, and I don't know, Judith, at what meeting you think would be most useful to do this at, but to talk about legislation, and surely we're going to renew the ones that would have passed if things hadn't gone the way they went. I mean, at least the coastal plastic cleanup one, and I think the coastal program one as well, which just, you know, that one, I'm really not sure why we couldn't get that one included in our omnibus, but that's just what happened. But I suspect, I mean, from my own perspective, and I wouldn't be surprised if from the House perspective, that we're going to see much more legislation. I am certainly going to be doing more on ocean plastics and plastics in general. And I, you know, I do wonder whether we might think more directly about legislation to help the aquaculture industry, as I think there's some things we can do there. So I think between the two of those, both, you know, letting people know what we're doing, and then also have meetings that are directed to particular pieces of legislation, that will kind of re-energize the commission and a sense of purpose for attending the meetings.
You know, so we've had three, with the completion of this latest report on marine plastics, we will have had three, you know, year-end summaries of issues that we've tackled. The ocean acidification, nitrogen, and marine plastics. And I think at at each of the previous two reports, we had spoken about having some type of meeting of saltwater legislators, some way to bring all decision makers and legislators who are within the coastal communities together to brief them on the findings of these
Great.
three areas. And that hasn't happened. So, you know, that might be something that we could do in 2021, or perhaps even this, maybe actually this fall would be the better time to do that, where we can share all the learning and the highlights and the findings and recommendations of this commission across those three topic areas. And then maybe to brief those legislators on areas that we've identified as ongoing priorities, and to hear from them about what areas are rising in importance, and where they would appreciate more clarity or guidance or input from this commission as we shape the next you know, topic or two or three that we undertake. But I would really like to see the findings of this commission shared more widely. I mean, I know that we have several legislators on board, and that's fantastic, but there are many others that we.
What if we,
of.
you know, the circumstances of the Coastal Risk and Hazards Commission and the support, the financial support for our, you know, obviously a very different order than what we have. But one thing we might do is to take the reports, all the reports that we've done, including this one, and I could have the Senate put those together into, you know, we could into we could put them together into one document. Not that they have to be edited, but just they could be the three separate ones. We'll put them together and with a preface, which I would describe in a moment, and then have the Senate print them and make them, you know, then they'd be available electronically as well. And we could use that as the vehicle for having a public forum, as Melissa is suggesting, that would, I think, certainly targets the legislators to invite, but also the general public and other folks who are interested. What I would think we could do for a preface is that we could, you know, we already have kind of brief summary of what we are, that kind of stuff. But then I think highlight from all of them the suggestions for further action, including legislation, and the suggestions or the identification of need for further research. And those could be foregrounded in an executive summary. And then the 3 documents as they are would follow. And that would give us something that, is quite understandable and also would represent to ourselves our marching orders.
Judith Spang, that was one of the things that I was also concerned about, Senator Waters, is does our commission actually take it far enough in terms of implementation? I think the farthest that we go is recommending that legislation be introduced and passed. We don't go any farther, and I'm not sure if a commission can. And I think that would make it more impactful if we could begin to talk more about implementation, including further research. And I think if we get more into implementation, then the commission's work will seem more important to the participants also. Is anything, when I read through the final report, I think, okay, but what are we actually accomplishing? And I think Eric started out by saying, yes, are we accomplishing anything? What do we need to do to actually have an impact? So I think you're getting at the answer to that question. I'm also thinking,
I mean, we have the legislation outlines our duties, and basically it's making recommendations. So we can construe that very broadly.
and it says, and propose prevention and mitigation strategies, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we don't have any authority, but we can, those are the things we can do, and that we can interpret that pretty broadly.
Yeah. Senator Ward, I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but since I've got a live one on the line here with Senator Waters, do you think that we should have this this kind of meeting together with legislators at a time that they can actually put in new legislation, or closer to that time? How should we make sure that they have the knowledge, the inspiration and the knowledge to actually go about writing legislation to implement things that catch their fancy?
Well, Senator Waters, good question. And, it's the election, the election season. And yet it's not like all people running are going to be spending 24/7. I mean, except for maybe Tom Sherman and in terms of, some of the coastal folks. I mean, senators have to, who are in highly contested elections are going to have to put a lot of time in, but I don't see why they couldn't break away for a couple hours. And so the Senate won't file until sometime after probably a week, or we'll probably start a week or so after a couple weeks after the election, we'll start filing, and we'll do it through December. But I mean, really, senators can file, we can put in bills into February. The House has its early filing in September, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have another filing in November, December.
Yeah. So yeah, beginning of December, certainly, end of November.
So
yeah.
I guess
So the early filings are for those who are hopeful and confident that they will be reelected. So they're putting in.
So I would, I don't know whether we want to wait to have our public forum in November. I would think October, and in a way, it might get a little more attention because it is in the election season. And, I mean, like it or not, we are not, I mean, we are certainly related to larger issues of climate and the environment. And so then those issues certainly are going to have some heightened scrutiny during the election season. So it's possible that aside from helping to inform legislators who might want to put in legislation, October might be the time. So I guess that would mean September, we probably ought to get our ducks in a row in terms of the report, getting it published. The legislators, and we could actually ask the legislators who aren't on this commission about legislative ideas, and then we could decide what we want to highlight in the version of the report we're going to be putting out that is kind of collects all the things, and then we could have our meeting in October, and it could be kind of I mean, it could be just that we would have the public forum, which would be our October meeting, basically, not at the same time necessarily.
Just so to let you know, I'm taking notes also, so that's so just capturing what's being said.
I wonder if maybe in announcing the date and so on for this meeting, which I'm assuming, of course, will be virtual, we could have just a couple little questions. And it would include, are there issues related to coastal and the marine natural environment that are bubbling up in your district that we could consider? But this email invitation to the event could also be an opportunity to gather some information that might help us in thinking again about future topics for consideration, and maybe also ways to pull out some of the salient and relevant bits from our own deliberations and reports that might be relevant in that district or to that legislator.
So
Yeah,
Eric, might we have the others? I mean, I've been saying a lot, and I wondered if we might have Jerry and Steve and Brian both Steves and Brian have a chance to talk about what they think ought to be, we ought to be looking at in terms of legislation or outreach.
Well, Brian Janacco here. One of the things that we haven't really talked about, and this is kind of on a lower level, is involving a lot of these coastal communities have conservation groups for the town or a conservation commission. And I think involving those smaller conservation commissions and giving them the information that we have shared, and talking to people that are actually working in these towns, whether it's the town of Dover or Hampton, and bringing those people on board and getting them involved might be a lot of voices, and maybe getting them together could be an interesting scenario.
Great idea.
And one other thing, Eric, is there are people that come to the meetings and people who don't. Is there a point where you say to someone, are you still involved? And do you want to be on this commission?
Representative Spang, I wonder also, Brian, if we should ask them if there's an issue that they would really think that we should be digging into. Possibly they're not coming because they don't think the issues that we have chosen are the most salient. And it would certainly re-involve them to ask what would engage them, or what they see as being the important topics that we have not yet looked at.
Absolutely.
Richard.
I guess we could ask them both the topics, and then also, the same question we're talking about today is what could we do that would make them more interested in attending, make it this time more valuable. assuming that they agreed to be on the commission because, at that point they had a feeling that, there was a reason for doing that and they were on board with that. I mean, there are some people who have never come, and maybe
Right.
they,
So,
what's that?
right. So bringing in new blood, if they've decided they don't want to be on the commission, but they haven't voiced that, it might be nice to bring in someone else rather than having an empty seat.
Well, Representative Spang again. I'm thinking about Gino Marconi. Gino is a very active participant in an issue that he finds interesting, and he is extremely knowledgeable. And he would be someone where if we said, what topic brings you to this and what topic would you like to see explored, I think we'd had a really interesting expansion of the kinds of things that we might address.
Agreed. I mean, I think when Brian has been coming and Jay has come intermittently, and I think that's given us the opportunity to dive into, some of the aquaculture related concerns and issues. When Eric Anderson engaged, it was, around marine debris and that engagement led to, the one, as Melissa pointed out, the leading example of, I guess, something coming out of the commission that had an impact. So it may be good to kind of reach out and at least, message those outcomes of involvement, I guess, potentially. I mean, I know people like Mark Godfroy's commercial fisherman is very busy, doesn't have a lot of, extra time, but maybe these folks can give us an idea of how we can gain kind of access to their concerns and interests.
Melissa here, is it, if people decline to participate and express that they're no longer interested or available for whatever reason, is it possible to refill seats? Or does that have to go back to the legislature for approval?
Well, it would depend. I don't have the act in front of me, but it would depend on which ones are by statute and which are by appointment. So that, like with Gino, I'm not sure whether, I think it says that there, I don't know if it has or designee on there. So it really depends person by person. If it's a particular person and then I neglected to put our designee in there, then we're stuck. So we can review that. But I didn't know if Sherry had any thoughts about these ideas, or Representative Jandron or anybody else.
Good morning. Thank you. I think that shaking up a committee with new members is always a good avenue to keep interest going. I don't know if those that are not on today's conference call feels that we finished up product, so they really don't need to engage, or the reasoning why. But I always think that shaking up an attendees list will re-engage people concerned over the topics.
Well, good point. And I think part of today's meeting didn't promise a lot of fireworks. But it's also, hard to know what the current issues are. I mean, Gino and I and others are much involved in the Newcastle Rye Bridge. And, but if you weren't following that, and then the Hampton Seabrook Bridge. I mean, these have been issues that are now, especially the Newcastle Rye Bridge, are really becoming significant and difficult. And it does certainly affect the marine environment, because it's going to be whether or not people will be able to get into certain areas of coastal waters anymore. But it's just awfully hard for the commission to react or to have that become part of its work. So I think that it's better for us to be able to look at the longer term things, and that's what we've been trying to evaluate. But I think that even going back over what we've done in our 3 reports in our September meeting, and if the legislators perhaps having a little confab before that, I think that coming out of what we've done previously, there are some things become clear that we could push further. And I will just, won't speak for the other legislators, but I think the mood on a lot of these issues on environment and climate in general has been intensifying over the last couple of years, and that there is a sense that we need to do much more. And that, I think that for me, sometimes I've been a little reluctant because I'm very much process oriented and also trying to get bills passed rather than just put them in and get votes on them. But I do think we're going to see a lot more activity in the legislature, no matter what the results of the November election are, on environmental issues. And I think that there are things that have come out of what we've done that now seem more pressing than they did. I mean, even on acidification, and things have happened, and then the warming of the Gulf waters. We're just, things are really intensifying, and so that I think that in revisiting some of this, there might be a sense that there's more legislation and recommendations for action that we could take.
Melissa here. That's really, really interesting to hear your sense, Senator Waters, about this idea that things that we looked at a year, 2 or 3 years ago have even greater importance now than they might have then. Another example of that, which I think was sort of partly coincidental and serendipitous in one sense, is the fact that in our nutrient report 2 years ago, or a full year ago, I guess, we made a recommendation that septic systems be, I forget the language exactly, but that septic systems are a significant source of nutrient pollution in coastal waters, and was that this issue be taken up. And then sure enough, Representative Spang proposed a commission. I don't think it was as a result of our recommendation, but it was a great case of, like I say, coincidence. And then now that commission is making a year-end report with recommendations that will be out in November. And I think that the report of this commission absolutely has a bearing on what will come out of this commission, and should be referenced as a source of kind of confirmation of the importance of this issue, that this one commission made recommendations that are now sort of being taken down the field further by this other commission. So I think there's a way to dovetail the two that is really important and significant. And in order for the recommendations of the Septic System Study Commission to gain any traction, we really are going to need, especially, this is a statewide issue, not just a coastal one, but we're going to really need support of legislators whose districts are impacted by, algae blooms and in freshwater and marine ecosystems. So, kind of how we can support, through maybe this event we're talking about in October, to build greater recognition and support among legislators, that here's another avenue to really, like I say, push the ball down the field on one particular and very important issue.
Well, if I may follow up on that, I mean, Melissa makes a great point about, why revisiting nitrogen, for example. I mean, an acidification, Massachusetts acidification commission has been underway. I went to address their first meeting and told them about what we've been doing. So I suspect that they're pushing forward, and I know that Maine has now taken much more action on coastal issues. So, the stage is kind of set. And then in particular, I think we will see, I mean, the EPA permitting for the wastewater treatment, it looks like we're just about there. I don't really think there's going to be any further legal actions from the municipalities, although, they're kind of, there's a lot of negotiating and conversations going on with the EPA administrators. But I think what we're going to see is basically limits of technology coming down, and but with the provision that the communities can take a kind of a whole bay approach and all kinds of mitigation factors and lay out their plans. And that opens a window for us, I think, to propose some, pretty particular things that communities might look at as a menu of, yeah, we could do that and we could do this instead of having to build the new plant, or put the $20 million addition on the plant as Dover would have to do. And then the earlier point that I guess was Brian made about therefore bringing in the local conservation groups, because they're the ones in the communities who I think when the EPA licensing comes down are going to be tasked with, okay, what are the mitigation and treatment factors that we're going to take up. So it really does seem to me it's a chance for us on a couple of these issues to really recommended in our earlier reports. I think marsh restoration is going to be one that, we talked about, but that's clearly going to be much more important. So anyway, I just think there are lots of things for us that if we could spend our September meeting really going through the 3 reports and saying, okay, based on where we are now, what do we want to put in that executive summary as the recommendations for action and for legislation.
I do want to take a check in. We've got about a little less than 10 minutes left. But it seems like we're honing in on some specific actions that will inform what we do in September. And David just made a specific kind of recommendation about what we could do in the September meeting. But just to review, it looks like the 3 things that seem to be emerging is we need to reach out to members and, with some questions about continued interest in the commission, some ideas of what topics we could cover and what things we could do to make this time more appealing to them in terms of putting it into their schedule. Second, organizing an effort to publish our reports, but all 3 together with sort of a preface that summarizes the recommendations, both the research and the implementation steps or the research and other recommendations, I guess, highlighted in the preface of that report. And then targeting a briefing to present that report and also take advantage of the opportunity to communicate what we've done as a commission and to hear from folks what, some reflection on what we've done and maybe some ideas of what we could continue to do or pursue in the future. The timing seems to be, the timing was also touched on, recognizing that this is an election year, but also, which may mean that some folks are distracted or, but I think David was suggesting that folks still have time and energy to put into something like this. And in fact, it may bring more folks into the conversation. And if we were to target a briefing, we might think about doing that in October and perhaps during our October meeting time slot. I guess in terms of like timing, it seems like that means that we really should be immediately starting to focus on pulling together the reports and developing a plan for writing and printing and distributing that plan. And the September meeting could be either a review of that document or maybe that would be a time to kind of reflect on where we are with respect to that report. But we really, at that point, need to be identifying and focusing on putting some energy into organizing the briefing at the end of October. If we're going to get people there and we're going to be organized and take advantage of that, it's going to take significant planning and we're going to have a so maybe what I can do after this, summarize the notes, make these, engage the rest of the commission on some of these plans of ours, and then try to organize and pull in a few people who are willing to put in some time to help us do both of these tasks.
All right, thank you. That sounds really good. This is Judith again. I think that Senator Waters brought up something interesting. That is the marshes. In the Resources Committee, we actually had a bill in about using jet skis in marshes, and I think that did not make it into the omnibus. Maybe it did. And the marshes are something we, definitely should be looking further into. And there's some very interesting things going on in the Great Marsh in Massachusetts, for example. And I think the marshes would be great because everything affects the marshes, the sedimentation, and the setbacks, certainly the septic setbacks. I think that is that's a very rich topic to begin to take on. Some of our seacoast legislators are very interested in marshes. So that may also be a way to get them back. The other thing that occurs, well, I'm gonna, once again, which I always do, is talk about sediment. And Steve Jones, I'm sure, would back me up on this, but sediment is right in our legislation of what we're supposed to be looking at. And I don't think we've gone as far as we need to go in terms of looking at the sources of sediment, but also at what we can do to stop it. We absolutely, it's absolutely lethal to places like Great Bay and our marshes and things. And I haven't, Steve Jones and I and a bunch of other people did a study on the Great Bay sedimentation problem, but nothing, and got incredible information, but nothing has really happened as a result of it. And it wasn't taken beyond the Great Bay Oyster River. We are looking at the way the rivers are going to be unavailable for recreation if they keep sedimenting up. And just to follow up, our meeting with other people, I'm hoping will also bring out some of these issues, ones that we haven't thought of, that are certainly part of what should be our charge, but are ancillary enough so that we haven't looked at it, like the legislative sponsor of the bill to eliminate the jet skis in the marsh. If that legislator came forward at our meeting and said, this is something that we really ought to be looking at, then it would open our eyes to some of the other issues that are maybe unique to New Hampshire, but also ones that are not the obvious ones.
So Steve, a couple of thoughts, because I know we've got to wrap up. Could you pull together the three reports into one document and then from them extract the recommendations and put those into a single file that we can work on as the preface executive summary, et cetera. And then would you communicate with the legislators on the commission about setting up a meeting sometime in September to get us to focus on that list and to think about legislation that would go into the report as recommended legislation. So I think that would, I mean, I think we gotta, if we're gonna have our September meeting be the one in which we finalize a document with legislative recommendations to bring out to the public hearing in October, that we better be working on it during the month. Lastly, let me note that our next meeting is supposedly for Monday, September 28th. And that's the Yom Kippur. And I think that would not, I think people would not be real happy if we were meeting on Yom Kippur. So I wondered if we might, at least among the group here, consider the next day, Tuesday, perhaps, or you all, I mean, you, Eric, you can maybe try to figure out what we should do about that.
Okay.
Just so
And
you know that we are open on the Zoom for the 29th if you do want to do it on that Tuesday, Senator.
Or maybe we should grab that, Alan.
I will reserve it right now from the 9 to 11.
Yeah, and also, Eric, just one last thing. Since we have a quorum, do we have minutes to approve or any votes to take?
We've got minutes for both March and July.
I move that we approve the minutes for March and July, Senator Waters.
This is Cherie Patterson. I had submitted to Eric a minor change in, I believe it was March's minutes.
That's right. And those have been posted to the site and they are the current draft.
So I move those as amended.
Second. Spang, second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving?
You have to do a roll call, Eric. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The public meeting notice.
Okay, so roll call with everybody or just?
Just those present. You can look at the screen and go one to the next.
Okay, and do the people who moved and seconded have to vote?
Everybody votes.
Okay, Senator Waters, are you yay or
yes. Senator
okay.
Waters, yes.
Judith? Spang?
Representative Spang votes yes.
Brian Giannacco?
Yes.
Representative Jambrin?
Representative Jensen votes aye.
Eric Chapman votes yes. Cherie Patterson?
Cherie votes aye.
Melissa Paley?
Aye.
All right, the motion is passed. And we have approved the minutes from both March and July. All right, with that, we will close out of respect of people's time, but we've got some things to do. Senator Waters, I will work to bring the three reports together, start to initiate writing of a preface for that meta report. And you said bring together the folks on the commission who are representatives?
Yeah, the legislators. Does that make sense? Judith and Steve,
Yeah.
and so I think I think that would be good for us to. There won't be a quorum, so that's okay.
Okay, so then that'll be a separate meeting sometime in September.
Yeah, and I think if you can send out the kind of collocation of the previous recommendations for legislation and also the legislation that has been introduced but didn't get through. We'd have that in front of us and we could then look at it and add to it.
Okay.
Just a heads up though, that the House opens on September 8th and I believe closed on the 18th. So maybe we could have it during that period because I think loading all of these on the Senate is not fair. I think we should be working on getting some of these into the House as well. So if we can take that into mind, maybe meet between the 8th and the 18th of all the legislators.
Well, the House gets to file in November too. Right?
Right, and I know that there was a jet ski bill for Rye Harbor and such that failed
Right.
to make it out of the Senate that I know that's going to be reintroduced. Those sorts of things we can coordinate, I think, prior to November. But there are some ones that we may want to introduce in that first filing section. We'll know after September 8th who's going to stick around, I think.
Okay, so we'll aim for between September 8th and 18th. All
Sounds
is
good.
best- What's that?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Should I aim
September
for
8th.
like, do a doodle poll for that?
Sorry, Eric, September 8th is primary day, so it wouldn't be that
Correct.
day.
Yeah. It wouldn't be that day, right?
Someday in between those two.
Mhm.
And should I doodle poll, David? Is that the best way to
I
schedule?
guess.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
I
Give that a
just,
shot.
I'm sorry, this is Cherie again. I just wanted to let you know that I have a council meeting starting up on the 29th for the week, so I wouldn't be able to attend on September 29th.
Okay.
What is the Monday prior to that? The 28th would be the 21st. Is that available?
I am available on the 21st.
Yeah, I am as well.
Okay,
Alan?
You want me to check? Okay, hold on.
Sorry. Thank you. And Senator Waters, the purpose of the meeting between September 8th and 18th is to review the 3 reports and then a summary of the legislation. I mean, I guess it was only the last one, I think, that had legislation listed in it, I believe.
I guess that if you would just, the recommendations from each 3, if they're going to go into a new preface.
Yeah.
If we had that.
So is this, we are open on the 21st. Is this instead of doing it on the 29th? That's what you're suggesting?
I believe so.
Okay. Yep. We are okay then. And would you like it for 9 a.m. as well?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
I mean, there'll be some people who really can't do that, but I mean, there always are. It's a hit or miss thing. So,
You got it. I have.
and then with the other group, we'll try to meet between September 8th and 18th. I'll send out a doodle poll after I pull together the 3 reports with the recommendations in the preface, in a preface.
And let me just say that the purpose of that meeting is to have enough to get.
Uh-oh, we lost you.
I think you froze up there, Senator.
I was really, had me on the edge of my seat, so.
Obviously, legislators may and probably will think of additional things to introduce as legislation in the November, December filing period. But this will get us something that we can go to the public with.
Awesome.
So,
I'm really confused. So we have 2 different meetings now. You said one between the 8th, after the 8th,
that's
Right.
just for legislators, Judith.
legislators on the commission.
Right. And then the commission meets on the 21st.
Okay, I'm out that week of the September 7th. And then the whole commission is the 21st. We had also been talking about, David, you said perhaps we could get the Senate to help us put together the recommendations of the commissions that are involved in similar issues.
Well, no, I thought what we'd do is this, we could have the Senate print and get ready this collocation of everything.
Of
As a
just,
document that we would then go to the public hearing with.
and that's just this commission's findings.
Right, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. All righty.
All right. All right, thank you very much. We will be in touch. Check your email.
Eric, officially adjourn us, please.
Okay, the meeting is officially adjourned.
Okay,
Got to
thank
take
you.
a roll call for adjournment. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
Roll.
we have to have a roll call.
Okay, for the whole group.
One at a time, just like the last roll call.
Just people who are here.
Just people who are here. Okay,
Yeah.
Judith Spang,
Aye.
Senator Waters,
All right.
Brian Giannakko. Brian.
Sorry, aye.
Okay, Melissa Paley.
Aye.
Representative Janvrin.
Representative Janvrin votes aye.
Sherry Patterson.
Aye.
All right, so the meeting is officially adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Have
Everybody.
a good day.
You too.